So there's more travel chaos for millions this week as ASLEF train drivers have gone on strike again. But the fat cat rail bosses at these train operators received bonuses, unbelievably, of up to £1 million last year, despite being too scared to take on the hard left unions who were letting passengers down. On top of that, new laws brought in to minimise the impact of rail strikes were doomed to rail. See what I did there? According to government ministers. Let's talk to the panel straight away tonight because we've got a great one here. Barrister and broadcaster Andrew Ebron, Spectator journalist Ben Lazaurs and broadcaster and writer Emma Woolfe. Welcome, one and all. Happily, you didn't have to try and get here by train, I presume.
Absolutely
because for the next 9 days, I think, there's going to be sort of strikes in one part of the country or another designed to really, really just completely and utterly piss people off, for want of a better word.
A little cheeky bonus in February with another 5 days.
Yeah, but you know what? I've been listening all today from Mick Whelan and various others about how we haven't had a pay rise for 5 years. And it turns out, yeah, that may well be true. However, up until something like last year, they had an average train driver's salary increasing by 34% since 2012, the highest increases across 15 different operators, up 55%, up 62%. Salaries now averaging $60,000 a year, up from $44,000 10 years ago. So in the last 10 years, leading up to this latest argument, they've done pretty well.
Yeah, and I think what I love about your show, Mike, is that you always shine more light and less heat.
Let's do it.
Let's have the facts.
Yeah.
What I find extraordinary, however, is why they're not imposing these minimum service levels. We've just had the new powers on the relevant people. 40% they're allowed, basically, they can say. And if they don't comply, they can get fines, the union, and also the unfair dismissal protection goes out the window.
Yeah.
So they should be a lot tougher, shouldn't they?
Well, they should, but apparently LNER threatened to do this to their striking workers, and they said, right, if you do that, we'll strike for 5 days instead of 1.
They're worried that, imposing these MSLs, these minimum things that you absorb.
I know.
Minimum service
I know.
levels.
I didn't know that was short for it, but
I
they
know.
were.
IHA. I hate
I know.
Absolutely.
Well, the government appear to have bungled the issue as well, of course,
well, of
because
course.
they've been saying, I mean, Rishi Sunak's been out there saying he would expect them to impose the minimum service levels, but actually, can't really enforce it. It's not going to enforce it on the four
Are there any
companies
laws
that
this government can enforce?
No, really not.
They brought in the Strikes Act in November.
Yeah.
And they did that, in the face of opposition from Labour, from the unions. It was quite a tough bill to pass in the House of Lords. And that was supposed to bring in this rule that the
trains would always run, effectively.
40% when they were striking. And the government don't seem to have enforced that whatsoever. The 18 train companies have just sort of done what they like, and the government seems too distracted worrying about vaping to...
I know.
They're also going to say it's not just about money. They're going to say it's about the way that the working conditions and so on.
Well, the union guys are very smart. I mean, they're not stupid, and they're running rings around the government.
And they'll talk about safety as well.
Yes.
They'll talk about safety rather than talking about the fact they want more money.
Yeah.
And the thing is, of course, we have to support the right of workers to form unions, to collectively withdraw their labour, but at what cost?
Well, not in every case.
But at what cost to the public?
Yeah.
Because this is the public going about trying to get to work, trying to just go about
Exactly.
their business, trying to get people... I know school children who can't get back from school.
Yeah.
Don't live
A lot of school children take trains to get to school.
Absolutely.
And they will not be able to do so.
And it's not just the general public, it's the knock-on effect, things like the hospitality industry. And they were saying today it's cost $350 million on top of the billions they've already
Say
lost.
hospitality, hospitals and
hospitals and hospitality and all that sort of stuff.
And sort of how many low-paid workers, who on average salaries would have been really inconvenienced today, tremendous stress, nurses who might not be able to get to hospitals to treat patients, etc. And this is basically because the train drivers don't want to accept going from $60,000 a year to $65,000 a year. I mean, that's
and they don't want to modernise either, and they keep insisting that they must have a secondary person on the train, because people feel safe. It's all a load of old cobblers at the end of the day.
Almost double the average salary in the country.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, at the time when it was revealed how much of these increases had happened since 2012, they were actually beating inflation by quite some margin. 62%, I think, up in pay from, even when inflation was running at sort of 20%. So they were doing pretty well. But the thing is, we've got chock full of lawyers in the Houses of Parliament, right? MPs, there's more lawyers than you can shake a stick at. They don't seem to know much about the law. They keep making laws that don't work. or that cannot be sort of acted upon.
It's crazy that we've got the law, as we say, to turn around and get these minimum service levels, and they're not enforcing it. It's complete rubbish on that sort of basis. But what's also interesting is the general public, when the doctors went out on strike, the general public sometimes would support them and so on and so forth. I don't know anybody in the general public who is supporting the train drivers' strikes. We were speaking earlier, so we should try and put their case. We thought it sounds so ludicrous.
We thought we'd try and come out and support the strikers, Mike, but it just didn't really.
Well, I'm very glad.
It didn't really work.
I'm glad you didn't do that. Well, I mean, the doctors' strike, the last one, they didn't even bother having a picket line outside Guy's Hospital. They just didn't bother turning up, which is to your question about should people have the right to strike. But let's not give it all to the unions, because we've also got to blame the fat cats who are running these train companies, because the whole system is buggered, quite frankly. Arriva gave its top executive over £1 million in pay and perks in 2023. First Group's two top bosses shared bonuses of 1.3 million. Go Ahead's chief executive got a £540,000 booster paid for what?
And these are companies that get huge subsidies.
Yeah.
The train companies get something like 12 billion a year in subsidies. So, we're coughing up
only this country and this government and, other governments before it could privatise something, but we still pay.
Yeah,
How does that work?
You're absolutely right. But the interesting thing is what it says in their employment contracts, because what's going to happen, you should make it conditional upon certain things. So strikes should be penalties and so on and so forth. You need to have, what they're doing is looking at performance-related pay. Yeah. They will argue that actually some of these are European enterprises and they're making a lot of money. And if they're making a lot of money, then the bonus system in the employment contracts does exactly that. What they should do is tie it into the strikes as well, tie it into efficiency and targets, and then work on that basis. So it's performance-related pay, but the problem starts with the employment contract.
Yeah, but these are all people that are based here, aren't they? These are not people who are running foreign railways. They might have a group.
But sometimes the benefit is from the group.
Yeah, but I don't think that Arriva's top executive has got anything to do with any other European rail company, and I don't think First Group either, because First Group is a company that operates purely and simply in Britain, and it's just nonsense. It just sends the wrong signal, doesn't it? If you'd pardon the pun.
Signal. I think we love the pun.
See what I did there?
And keep on track.
It's worth pointing out too. I mean, we talked about percentage rises before with the drivers.
Yeah.
But if you dig down into the data on the sort of salaries of the top bosses, those earning circa $1 million a year, these were like 30 to 60% raises on the previous year.
Yeah, exactly.
Really,
and one of the things I've been hearing today all day is that an awful lot of train drivers have done well because they've been poached by other railway companies.
Yes.
Because it's cheaper to nick somebody from another railway company than it is to train somebody.
There you go.
So as usual, the great British practice of not bothering to train anybody to do any jobs means that we've got a shortage, presumably, of train drivers.
Have you noticed the way it's been planned, these 9 days of 24-hour rolling strikes? It really paralyses the country. Because one day you maybe can get to work, the next day you can't, the next day your kids can't, the next day it really is.
It's awful. And fewer and fewer people are using the railways, because I think it was a Ministry of Transport study that came out. Compared to pre-COVID levels, train travel is now down by something like 25 to 30%. Because a lot of people, and I'm one of them, just wouldn't use the train. You just can't trust it.
If you can't let the train take the strain, it's a real
I had to
issue.
I had to go to the Edinburgh Festival last year for just a quick trip for one night only, and I flew because I was like, I can't take a chance on taking a train.
Sitting on a platform all night.
Not getting there.
And the actual experience of travelling by rail is miserable. It's dirty, it's cold, it's always delayed. I mean, we're talking about these MSLs, which I quite like now. We're talking about these MSLs as though 40% is kind of like almost half the service. That probably means running just a couple of trains a day, to get people...
Well, anyone that I know that travels by train tells me that you turn up and it's a bit like the lottery. And particularly even commuter trains coming in from south and north of London, that, you turn up at the station, they might have cancelled a train, it might be running. If it is a busy train, it might have been only reduced to half the size, so it's only got 4 carriages instead of 8, so you don't get to sit down, you're pressed up against people. I mean, it's horrendous.
Sit down.
And it's not cheap either, is it?
No, but it's OK, because remember, they've got the pillars in London Bridge and places like that painted as rainbows.
Yeah, that's good.
So we know that it's all OK,
particularly
right?
enjoy that.
We know the rail companies are supporting polyamory, demisexuals, LGBTQIA, X, Y, Z.
My favourite, the aromantics. We talked about it a bit last night, which is basically somebody who has relationships with people but doesn't really love them.
Oh, is that right?
Which I call basically just a bastard.
Bad or marriage.
Exactly. It is nonsense. Let's have a look at one of their ASLEF blokes, though, because we've got ASLEF's executive committee member, Miles Colombini, talking to Talk TV today. See what he says.
What we earn as train drivers and the terms and conditions of employment we enjoy should be something that other workers aspire to, not something that other workers are made to feel envious of.
A miles a day makes
not
you work,
quite
rest
sure.
and play.
I've heard
Not
that
quite
now
sure what his point
7
is.
times,
Yeah.
and I still don't understand what he's on about.
I think he's saying we actually have quite good terms and conditions and other people should want them as
So
opposed to...
that's why we're on strike?
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense,
It doesn't make much sense. Mars, I love the name now. It's got to be good. Work, rest and play.
Yeah.
Mars
Work on that basis.
Colombini.
Yes, it's good. They're great.
Absolutely. I mean, it is extraordinary.